Um, July 22nd, 2023. Well, we had finally come to a ruling by Judge Cannon on the upcoming trial of former President Trump on the documents case, which has now been set for May 20th of 2024, next year. So remember, this is a what would I say, a compromise between what the prosecutor wanted to set it sometime in December and Trump's lawyers were asking sometime of next December. So this is sort of roughly right in the middle, midway between the two time periods. So, and remember that the prosecution side seems to be trying to get Judge Cannon off the case so they can come up with an excuse, because they tend to think she's pro-Trump. Maybe she's just objective, but at any rate, remember the rulings that were made back after the original search and so forth, and the rulings in favor of a special master that she had, which is what the Trump lawyers wanted, and of course was eventually overturned by the somewhat wimpy Atlanta-based appellate court. Don't expect much good out of that court, in my opinion. It seems like judges in Georgia seem to have a problem. I don't know what it is, but they seem to have one. But anyhow, so at any rate, that's a major development, which kind of suggests getting into a little bit of a discussion of the presidential political agenda right now. So I think also this coming December, I think it is when Trump's hearings are supposed to start on this really ridiculous case that's been brought in Manhattan against him, and which should be dismissed because of statute of limitations issues alone, if nothing else. But that's coming up too. And then as we go into August, we're looking at the possibility of some kind of a charge being filed in Georgia, in the Fulton County district there, where you've got a kind of radical left-wing prosecutor that's trying to make up some kind of a charge. And we'll have to see what they come up with. I'm hearing the term racketeering being thrown around. So they're probably, misusing some law in some way, but we'll see how that turns out. That's another thing that's on the agenda. And then finally, of course, there's the likely case that Special Prosecutor Jack Smith is going to come up with in the D.C. court system, which is the one where he has the maximum chance of getting a conviction, given the inherent skewedness of the jury pool there. And that's going to be some kind of a conspiracy charge, I believe. So anyway, that's kind of the layout for our presidential politics here. So, the thing is that if you look at the calendar, for instance, let's look at the May 20th date. Looking at the primary calendar and looking at the likelihood, it's likely that most of the Republican primaries will be over with before the trial even begins, let alone it will be over with by the time certainly by the time the verdict is reached. So that leaves us with the possibility that of course, that Trump could theoretically be convicted and then be nominated as the presidential candidate. So anyway, that's kind of the thing that we're facing here. Because after all, Trump is ahead in the polls he's polling over 50% in the Republican primaries, whereas the nearest challenger, DeSantis, is right around 20%, and everybody else is in kind of mid or single digits or lower. So at any rate, by the way, if you like these videos, please give me a like and subscribe if you haven't already. And so, but anyway, that's the way that the situation looks as we go forward into this campaign right now. So, and given this lead, I think you can say that the Trump is very likely to get the nomination unless something changes. Now, at this point, it's unclear whether he will participate in the debates in the Republican primary or not. He seems to be indicating he isn't going to, because basically so far ahead, why give the other people a target to attack? On the other hand, they could if they wanted to attack him anyhow, although more likely they'll probably go against each other, because only the people such as Christie, and there's another guy I don't know that well. I think it's governor of, is it North Dakota? I think I forget his name. I think those two want to actually attack Trump, but since they have almost no chance of winning anyhow, otherwise, I guess they can be the guys who will take on Trump, and that'll be their claim to fame. But as things go forward, it looks to me at the moment the indictments themselves don't seem to be deterring the Trump voters for supporting him. And my concern on this is primarily this, that while I agree that hardcore Trump people will still vote for him, in fact, I would obviously vote for a convicted Trump over any Democrat they're likely to field. I mean, in the Democrat Party. I mean, certainly over Biden, who has committed far more serious crimes than anything Trump has been accused of, actually. And of course, that's something else we can look at. I mean, this latest document, the FBI document of evidence there indicates that in fact Biden has actually taken something like $5 million in bribes from Ukraine, and as has Hunter, and this has been funneled through a bunch of shell companies that he's created. So, and looking at his unlimited support for the Ukraine war, you have to lead to the possibility that he could, to some degree, be being blackmailed by Ukraine or being paid off by them somehow. Or so, I mean, maybe some of that money we're sitting over there may be being filtered back. We don't know what the latest payments that might have been made to some shell companies. I'm not saying they are. I'm just saying we don't know. We do know what he was doing when he wasn't president. So, you know, he has more clout now than he did then. So that's one thing to consider in all this. So yes, I would definitely, but the problem is, I think a lot of other people may not vote for Trump under that scenario, especially if he actually were to be convicted. And remember, there's 37 charges, any one of which would be enough to mess him up. I mean, this is like a cluster munition of charges. And so it's a real dangerous situation. And personally, of course, I think DeSantis might be a better candidate, although he has his own issues, of course. He's very deep into social issues, of course, probably even more so than Trump really is in terms of speech. They probably pretty much agree on most everything in reality, except who should be president, right? and Trump seems to, well, there's no doubt that Trump was instrumental in making DeSantis the governor, the nominee, anyhow, in the race for his first race for governor to win the nomination over other candidates. That Trump can clearly claim. However, I mean, at this point, it's one of those deals, and I still sort of see all the Republican alternatives as just waiting to see if something knocks Trump out of the race. And if they don't, then I tend to think they don't really have any chance of getting the nomination. And of course, the idea that we do have a special prosecutor investigating Biden on his documents issues. And I guess these kind of security offenses, I know the serious ones, I know they don't have a statute of limitations, unlike most laws. So that is a real potential vulnerability. But does anybody believe the special counsel is going to really do anything? And also the established policy of the Justice Department is not to indict a sitting president, which, remember, was useful to protect Trump, and was in fact also was useful to protect Nixon back in the day. Remember, he was referred to as the unindicted co-conspirator for anybody that goes back that far. So, so in other words, Biden is clearly not going to be indicted while in office, and I think you can say safely, particularly with this Justice Department, even if there wasn't such a principle, they still wouldn't be doing it. And so my main thought here is that what's most critical is that we win this election. Almost any of these candidates any of the Republicans would be better than the Democrat because of the structural issues that the Democrats threaten. I mean, the Democrats clearly were prepared to vote to end the filibuster and then pass a variety of laws, including some pretty radical campaign laws which would facilitate cheating. And we all know that although Trump likes to make a big deal about the vote numbers and the amount of cheating, I agree with that wasn't all that high in terms of absolute numbers, but let's say it was 200,000 total votes. In the right states, those 200,000 votes would be enough to flip the election easily. And I think most of the cheating was the organized cheating was probably in the very competitive states. I doubt they spent a whole lot of trouble trying to run up their tally in California. And if they did cheat in California, it was just because it was habitual and was probably over local races or not or House races or something, not over the presidential race. They knew they had that in the bag anyhow. But some of these issues, for instance, was documented in a certain um, um, film having to do with a crossbreed between a horse and a donkey. I shouldn't say that too loud. I mean, it kind of showed how that was probably done and to produce enough votes to flip certain states like Georgia, Arizona, probably Wisconsin. Some people even think Michigan and Pennsylvania. Of course, Pennsylvania is always suspect anyhow, I think. But anyhow, and also you have all the rule changes were made that favored the Democrats. So I think there's some merit to that whole idea. Of course, that would have been a very exotic electoral win because, I mean, losing by 4% in the popular vote, but also winning the election would that would create a whole other controversy. But anyhow, and of course, but not to belabor the point, but I would still say that I'd gladly have DeSantis as president over having Trump losing. But the point is, right now, the Trump support is so much higher that he is going to get the nomination, and he's probably going to get it after the trial in Florida. Of course, there's a possibility he could be acquitted of all charges, or that the jury could hang. I mean, I wouldn't, I mean, if the jury were to hang, then there would be a mistrial, and then they have to reschedule a new trial, and of course that'd be a whole other debate. The other thing that might happen on that particular trial is I could still imagine that there'd be a lot of pretrial maneuvers, appeals, because Trump's main defense is really the Presidential Records Act argument, I think. I mean, I don't think there's any doubt he had the documents, but the question is what law should apply. So anyhow, that's that, and that's kind of where we are. Meanwhile, of course, we could be facing an interesting race where you'd have it's possible that the Republicans will probably eventually file impeachment charges against Biden, I think, given the way things are developing. This will be for a while. The main thing is not to file a charge or to actually impeach him, but to have the Judiciary Committee impeachment hearing where you go through all the evidence and present that out publicly and then use that as a basis for your campaign ads. I think that's probably what will happen. They might actually impeach him, but then what would a Democrat Senate do with that? I don't know, would they even have a trial, or would they just have a quick vote and vote not guilty along party lines or whatever, or maybe at least the Democrats would all vote not guilty, which would be enough because it takes 2/3, So, but anyhow, that's kind of the situation politically, and of course, then we have the third party factor. I mean, this no labels group is spinning up, and they're now touting. Let's see, was it Joe Manchin and who's the guy from Utah? Forget his name off the top of my head, but anyhow, although that may not be the ultimate couple of candidates they come up with. But the idea would be to have a couple of people that are not very popular in either party, but maybe popular among independents, I guess. And if you have, one person, fighting criminal charges on appeal, and the other person being effectively impeached and accused of accepting significant bribes, I mean, well. That's one scenario that could play out, which with a third party, who knows, that might almost turn the whole thing into a big coin toss, really. At any rate, but the thing I also think is that the Republican isn't running really strong. I mean, we have to look at it's also critical to retake the Senate and hold the House. It's important we have at least one of those three things: President, House, or Senate. Because having any of these would prevent the ultimate disaster of them packing the Supreme Court and then making all kinds of incredibly insane rulings, which they would probably do. And so that's something that we have to look out. And that's why I think getting too much involved with the personalities of these candidates, as much as we kind of respect the thing that Trump did during his term and everything else, we have to realize it's most important to win this election, and whatever it takes to do that is what counts. Now, uh, of course, Christie is not very popular with me, and I don't think there's any chance of him getting a nomination. I can't really see that happening. I mean, that would be a really bad move after all. Some of the worst appointments that Trump made were ones recommended to him by Christie. But such as Rosenstein, who appointed the council, raised hell with him for over 2.5 years. Yeah. So anyhow, but that's kind of the way I see the political situation there for the moment. And I mean, this is a year to definitely be involved, because we really, the country is going to go in a really bad direction if we lose this election. I'll just say that. Anyhow, I'll be wrapping this up for now. Of course, I'll be posting this on Rumble as well, and of course the addresses of my social media accounts are in the description below. And you can find me. I'll particularly be posting on some of them. Particularly, I post mostly on Twitter, but I do post these videos and sometimes other things on all the others. So until next time.